I was 28 when I took my father back to Copper Ridge. He'd been asking about it for months, ever since his diagnosis. Early stage dementia, the doctors said. Maybe a year or two before things got really bad. He kept talking about this trail in Colorado, the one he used to hike back in the 70s before I was born. Said he wanted to see it one more time while he still remembered why it mattered. I took a week off work and drove us out from Denver in early October. The leaves were turning, air was crisp, and Dad seemed more alert than he'd been in months. He directed me down old logging roads like he'd driven them yesterday, even though it had been 50 years. We parked at a trailhead that wasn't even marked anymore, just a pull-off with some faded wooden posts. Dad got out slowly, looked around, and smiled. "Still the same," he said. "That should have been my first warning. Nothing stays the same for 50 years. The first few hours were perfect." Dad walked steadily, pointing out landmarks. A split boulder he remembered. A creek crossing that still looked exactly the same. He was happy, more present than I'd seen him in a year. We talked about his early 20s before he met Mom. Before me. He'd spent a whole summer out here, he said, just hiking and thinking about his life. Around 3 in the afternoon, we reached a small clearing with a fire ring. I started to unload my pack when Dad stopped me. "We already set up here," he said. I turned around. "What? The tent? We put it over there." He pointed to a flat spot under some pines. "You said the ground was too rocky on the left side." I hadn't set up anything yet. My tent was still strapped to my pack. "Dad, we just got here." He looked confused for a moment, then shook his head. "Right. Sorry. Memory's going." I let it slide. That's what I was supposed to do, right? He had dementia. Confusion was normal, but something about the way he'd said it felt wrong. Not confused. Certain. I set up the tent where he'd pointed. The ground was softer there, like he'd known. That night, we sat by the fire. Dad was quiet, staring into the flames. I asked him what he was thinking about. "Jenny," he said. My chest tightened. Jenny was my aunt, Dad's younger sister. She died when I was 6, drowned in a lake somewhere out west. I didn't know the details. Dad never talked about it. "You miss her?" I asked. He looked at me. He and his eyes were different, younger somehow. "You look just like her," he said. "Same hair, same way you tilt your head when you're thinking." I'd heard that before, from my grandmother years ago, but the way Dad said it now felt strange, like he was seeing someone else when he looked at me. "Dad, I'm Maya, your daughter." "I know that," he said, but he kept staring. I woke up around 2 in the morning to the sound of footsteps outside the tent, slow, deliberate steps circling our camp. I grabbed my flashlight and unzipped the door. "Dad?" He was standing about 20 feet away, facing the trail, just standing there in his thermal underwear and boots. "Dad, what are you doing?" He didn't turn around. "Checking the path." "What path?" "The one I took last time." My stomach dropped. "I'm back to the tent. It's freezing." He turned then, and even in the weak moonlight, I could see his face. He looked younger, not just his expression. His actual face, fewer lines, tighter skin. "I took the left path last time," he said. His voice was different too, higher, stronger, and I never came back. I walked toward him, hard hammering. "You're here right now. You came back." He smiled. It wasn't his smile. Did I? When I reached him, he blinked, and suddenly he was old again, confused, shivering. "Maya, why am I outside?" I got him back into the tent, wrapped him in a sleeping bag, and stayed awake the rest of the night. The next morning, I noticed his footprints in the mud near the fire ring. They were there before he'd stepped. I watched him walk to the spot, and his boots landed perfectly in prints that were already there, already dried. "Dad, when did you come out here earlier?" "I didn't." But the prints were his, same tread, same wear pattern on the left heel. We started hiking again around 8 Selther. I wanted to turn back, but Dad seemed fine, normal. He was humming an old song, pointing out birds. I convinced myself I'd imagined things. Stress, lack of sleep. Then we found the backpack. It was hanging from a tree branch about 6 feet up, faded blue canvas, covered in mildew, the kind of pack people used in the 70s. "That's mine," Dad said. "What?" He walked up to it, reached up and pulled it down like he'd known exactly where it would be. He unzipped it. Inside were old supplies, a rusted canteen, a map, and a Polaroid. He pulled out the photo and stared at it. His hands started shaking. I looked over his shoulder. The photo showed a young man, maybe 25, standing in this exact clearing. Next to him was a young woman with long dark hair. She was smiling, head tilted slightly to the left. The man was my father, 50 years younger. The woman looked exactly like me. "Dad, who is that?" "Jenny," he whispered. "The day before she drowned. But Jenny had drowned in a lake 3 states away. I knew that much. And this woman looked exactly like me. Not just similar, identical. We need to leave," I said, "right now." But when I turned around, the trail behind us was gone. Just dense forest. No path, no markers. "It's the same as before," Dad said. His voice was young again. When I looked at him, he was 25, fully 25, full in shirt, worn jeans, face I'd only seen in old photographs. "Dad, I tried to leave last time," he said, "but the mountain doesn't let you leave until you choose." "Choose what?" He pointed ahead. Through the trees, I could see the trail split. 2 paths. Both had wooden signs. The left one said, "Together forward." The right one said, "Alone backward." "I chose wrong before," he said. "I took the left path with Jenny. We stayed together, but we never left. We're still here, Maya. We've always been here." My hands were numb. "You're not making sense. You left. You got married. You had me." He smiled sadly. "Did I? Or did you come here looking for me?" I pulled out my phone. No signal, but I had photos. Pictures of us from last week, from my childhood. Proof. But when I opened the gallery, the photos were wrong. Every single one showed us on this trail. Different ages, different years, but always here, always Copper Ridge. There was one from 2019, Dad at 72, me at 21, same trail. One from 2015, Dad at 68, me at 17. One from 2015, Dad at 68, me at 17. One from 23, Dad at 56, me at 5. All the way back to 1975, Dad at 25, and a little girl who looked like me, maybe 2 years old, on his shoulders. But I wasn't born until 1998. "The mountain keeps us," Dad said. "Old again, young again, flickering between ages like a bad signal. It kept Jenny. It kept me. Now it wants to keep you." The trail junction was right in front of us now. I could see down both paths. The left one showed our tent, our fire, everything familiar, safe, together. The right path showed nothing, just darkness. "If you go right, you leave," Dad said. "But I disappear. I was never there. You never had a father. And if I go left, we stay, forever, together on this trail. But we never leave." I looked at him, really looked. He was crying. Both versions of him, young and old at the same time. "I'm so tired, Maya," he said. "I've been walking this trail for 50 years, waiting for you, knowing you'd come, knowing I'd have to ask you to save yourself. I thought about my childhood, my memories. Were they real, or were they just photographs that had always shown this trail?" The left path looked warm. I could see our campfire already burning, could hear Dad's laugh, could feel 50 years of walking together. The right path was cold and empty. I started walking right. Behind me, Dad called out. Not my father's old voice, not his young voice. Something else. Something that sounded like wind through trees. "Maya, please." I didn't turn around. I kept walking into the darkness. When I finally stumbled onto a highway 3 hours later, the sun was setting. A ranger picked me up, asked if I was okay, asked where my father was. I told him I came alone. He looked at my permit. One person, solo hike. "You sure you're okay?" he asked. "You keep talking like someone's with you." I got in his truck. In the side mirror, I could see the trailhead disappearing behind us. There was someone standing there, watching, too far away to see clearly, but I knew it was him, still walking, still waiting, still choosing that left path over and over again. If you're hiking with elderly loved ones experiencing dementia, always inform rangers of your plans. Carry GPS devices, extra supplies, and never let them wander at night. Most importantly, if someone starts describing events that haven't happened yet or showing knowledge they shouldn't have, trust your instincts. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do is hold on to reality, even when it hurts. I don't hike the Appalachian Trail anymore. Not after what happened in October of last year. People ask me why I sold all my gear, why I won't even drive through the Smokies anymore. I just tell them I got busy with work. That's easier than telling the truth. I've been planning that solo hike for months. A 3-day section through North Carolina, nothing too ambitious. I'd done harder trails before. The weather forecast was perfect cool, clear, those crisp autumn afternoons that make you feel alive. I left the trailhead around 2 in the afternoon, planning to make camp before dark. The first hour was exactly what I needed. Orange and red leaves, the sound of my boots on packed earth, that particular silence you only get deep in the woods. I was maybe 4 miles in when I saw my water bottle lying in the middle of the trail. My blue Nalgene bottle, the one with the dent on the bottom from when I dropped it in the Rockies 2 years ago. I stopped walking, stared at it for a solid 10 seconds before I looked down at my pack. The bottle was in the side pocket where I'd put it. I pulled it out, compared them. Same dent, same stickers. I picked up the one from the trail. It was wet, like I'd just been drinking from it. I stood there holding 2 identical bottles. My hands started shaking, so I did what any rational person would do. I convinced myself I was wrong. Maybe I'd brought 2 bottles. Maybe I'd forgotten. I shoved the trail bottle into my pack and kept walking, checking over my shoulder every few minutes. A mile later, I found my compass. It was sitting on a flat rock right at eye level. My compass, the brass one my grandfather gave me, with his initials scratched on the back. I pulled my compass out of my jacket pocket, held them side by side. Both had the initials. Both had the same small scratch across the glass face. My chest got tight. I looked around, really looked, scanning the trees. Nothing. No one. The trail behind me was empty. I checked my GPS. I was going forward, following the right path. I marked a tree with my knife, a small X in the bark, just to prove to myself I wasn't walking in circles. Then I ran. Not a full sprint, but fast enough that my pack bounced against my spine. I needed to put distance between me and those rocks, between me and whatever was happening. I found my knife 15 minutes later, just lying there in the leaves. My knife, the one I'd just used to mark the tree. I stopped so fast I almost tripped. Pulled the knife from my belt. Same scratches on the handle, same blade. I picked up the one from the ground with shaking hands. The blade still had bark residue on it. I spun around, looking for someone, anyone. Hello? My voice cracked. The trees swallowed the sound. I started walking backward, watching the trail behind me, one knife in each hand like some kind of insane person. That's when I started marking every 100 feet, a slash on a tree, an X on a rock. Proof I was moving forward. Proof I wasn't losing my mind. But the marks stayed behind me. I checked. They were there, exactly where I'd left them, and I was still moving forward, according to my GPS. The trail didn't loop here. I knew the section. My headlamp appeared next, then my first aid kit, then one of my socks. They were appearing closer together now. I'd walk 50 feet and find something else. My spork, my chapstick, a protein bar, half eaten, even though the rest of the bar was in my pack, uneaten. I stopped checking my pack. It didn't matter anymore. Everything was still there and ahead of me at the same time. The sun was getting low. I needed to make camp, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking towards something, that someone was laying these out like breadcrumbs, leading me somewhere. Then I found my journal. It was open on a flat section of trail, weighted down with a rock so the wind wouldn't take it. Open to today's date. My handwriting covered the page, but I didn't remember writing it. I knelt down, not wanting to touch it. Started reading. I don't hike the Appalachian Trail anymore. Not after what happened in October of last year. My opening line, the one I'd thought about writing when I got home, about how this trip might be my last solo hike of the season. I kept reading. The entry described my day. Leaving the trailhead at 2, the red and orange leaves, finding the water bottle, the compass, the knife. It was all there, in my handwriting, in my words, the same words I'd been thinking. Then it described what I was doing right now, reading the journal, kneeling on the trail, My hands are shaking so hard I can barely hold the page. My hands were shaking. I dropped the journal like it had burned me. The next line was visible even from where I dropped it. I'm going to run now. I ran. I don't know for how long, until my lungs burned and my pack straps cut into my shoulders, until I couldn't hear anything but my own breathing and my boots hitting the ground. I didn't look back, didn't stop to mark trees, just ran until the trail opened up into a clearing with a designated campsite. I stopped so fast I almost fell. My tent was already set up. My blue 2-person tent set up perfectly, guy lines staked, rain fly attached. My sleeping bag was laid out inside, unrolled like I was about to climb in. My camp stove sat outside on a flat rock, next to my cook pot. I hadn't set up camp. I'd been running. My tent was still in my pack. I could feel the weight of it against my back. I took my pack off with numb fingers, unzipped the main compartment. The tent was there, stuffed in its sack, exactly where I'd packed it that morning. The tent in the clearing was real. I touched it. Solid nylon under my fingers, still warm from the afternoon sun. I backed away from the campsite, turned, and ran down the trail the way I'd come. Didn't stop until I hit the parking lot 2 hours later, my knees screaming, my headlamp battery almost dead. I called the ranger station from my car, told them someone had been following me, messing with my stuff. The ranger who answered said they'd check it out. He also said no one else had checked in for that section in 3 days. The gate logs showed only my car. I went home, didn't sleep, kept my lights on for a week. The disposable camera I'd brought, I'd taken maybe 20 photos that day, landscapes mostly. I dropped it off to be developed 2 weeks later, when I finally stopped jumping at shadows. I picked up the prints yesterday. The first 10 photos were what I remembered. Trail shots, trees, a photo of my boots on a log. Then there were photos I didn't take. Me asleep in my sleeping bag in that tent, my face visible in the frame, eyes closed. 5 photos from different angles, like someone had walked around the tent taking their time. The last photo was taken from inside the tent, looking out through the mesh door, at me standing exactly where I'd stood when I touched the tent that evening, my hand outstretched. But in the photo, my eyes were closed. I burned the prints that night, but I kept the negatives. I don't know why. Maybe because some part of me needs proof that it happened, that I'm not losing my mind. I still have them in a box under my bed. Some nights I think about developing them again, just to see if they show the same thing. But most nights, I just lie there and wonder who was behind the camera. Kaja Nowak here, and I need to tell you what happened to me in the Tatra Mountains 3 years ago, because nobody else will, and because I'm still trying to make sense of it myself. I went up to Zakopane in early October 2020, right when the pandemic restrictions had eased just enough to let people breathe. I needed to get away from Warsaw, from the lockdown walls closing in, from the endless online arguments about who I was and whether I had the right to exist as myself. The mountains felt like the one place where none of that mattered. I transitioned 2 years earlier, and hiking had become my therapy, my proof to myself that this body was mine, and it was strong, and it could do hard things. I picked a less traveled route toward Gawatki Ridge, nothing too extreme but remote enough that I wouldn't see many people. That was the appeal. I started early, maybe 6 in the morning, when the air still had that knife-edge cold that makes your lungs ache. The trail was clear enough at first, marked with the standard red blazes, winding through pine forest that smelled like resin and earth. About 2 hours in, I noticed the first cairn. Now, cairns are normal in mountains. People stack rocks to mark paths all the time, but this one was different. It was built in a perfect spiral, each stone placed with obvious care, and it was right next to the trail marker, as if someone wanted to create an alternative sign. I stopped and looked at it, felt this weird prickle at the back of my neck, but I shrugged it off. Hikers do strange things when they're bored. Then I saw the second one, maybe 20 minutes later. Same spiral pattern, same deliberate construction. This one had a small piece of fabric tied around the top stone, red like the trail markers but made of what looked like silk. I touched it and it was damp, which made no sense because it hadn't rained in days. I kept walking, but now I was paying attention, and I started seeing them everywhere. Every 10 minutes, another cairn, each one more elaborate than the last. Some had patterns of smaller stones radiating outward like sun rays. Others had objects placed around them, a dented compass, a tarnished bracelet, a small wooden figure that might have been a saint, or might have been something else entirely. The thing that got me was how fresh everything looked. The objects weren't weathered. The fabric wasn't faded. Someone had been here recently. Someone was maintaining these things, and I hadn't seen another soul on the trail. I should have turned back then. I know that now, but I'm stubborn, and I'd come all this way, and some part of me refused to let fear dictate my choices anymore. I'd spent too much of my life afraid of what people might do or say. Mountains didn't judge. Mountains didn't care about pronouns or bathroom bills or any of the garbage that made city life exhausting. Around midday, I reached a clearing where the trail split. Both paths were marked, but between them was the largest cairn yet, maybe 4 feet tall, and this one had personal items arranged around its base in a perfect circle. A water bottle, cap removed. A driver's license in a plastic sleeve, face down. I didn't want to touch them, but I leaned close enough to see the license. The photo showed a person with kind eyes and short hair, and the name was androgynous enough that I couldn't tell anything about them. The birth date made them 32. The expiration date was 3 years away. My hands started shaking. I pulled out my phone, but had no signal, which was expected up here, but it still made my chest tight. I took the left path because it led upward toward the ridge, toward open sky where I thought I'd feel less claustrophobic. The cairns continued, but now they were paired, one on each side of the trail, like sentries. The objects around them became more personal. Reading glasses, a wedding ring, a small notebook with pages fluttering in the wind, though when I grabbed it, the pages were blank, completely blank, every single one. But the spine was cracked, like it had been read 1,000 times. I was walking faster now, almost jogging, and I hated myself for the fear creeping up my spine because I'd promised myself I was done being afraid. But this wasn't normal fear, the kind you feel when someone yells slurs at you on the street. This was primal animal fear, the kind that says predator nearby, danger close, run now. That's when I heard the singing. It was faint at first, just at the edge of hearing, a melody without words drifting through the trees. A woman's voice, high and clear, singing something that sounded like a folk song, but in a language I didn't recognize. I stopped dead, listening, trying to locate the source, but it seemed to come from everywhere at once, echoing off the rock faces. I called out in Polish, then in English, asking if someone needed help, but the singing continued without pause, without acknowledgement. It grew louder as I stood there, not moving closer, but rising in volume anyway, and underneath it I started hearing other sounds. Footsteps on stone, the scrape of rock on rock, breathing that wasn't mine. I ran. I'm not proud of it, but I ran back the way I'd come, my backpack bouncing against my spine, my boots slipping on loose scree. The singing followed me, staying always at the same volume, no matter how fast I moved. The cairns blurred past, and I realized with growing horror that there were more of them than before, dozens lining the path like tombstones, and the objects around them were moving, rearranging themselves as I passed. I saw the compass spin. I saw the fabric ribbons twist in air that wasn't moving. I saw the wooden figure turn its head. I didn't stop until I burst back into the clearing with the large cairn, gasping for breath, my heart hammering so hard I thought I might vomit. The singing had stopped. The forest was silent except for my ragged breathing and the distant call of a crow. The personal items around the large cairn had been rearranged. They formed letters now, spelled out in boots and bottles and broken watches. Stay. I backed away, shaking my head, whispering, no, 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 like a prayer. And that's when I saw my own jacket lying at the base of the cairn, my red windbreaker that was currently on my body, wrapped around my shoulders, impossibly duplicated and laid out like an offering. I touched the jacket I was wearing, felt the solid reality of it, the zipper pull I'd fixed with dental floss last month, the small burn hole on the sleeve from a campfire. It was real, but so was the one on the ground. Identical down to the dental floss and the burn hole. Something moved in the trees behind not a person, not exactly, but a shape that suggested a person. Tall and thin and utterly still, watching me. The singing started again, so close now it might have been inside my skull, and I saw more shapes emerging from the forest, dozens of them, each one standing motionless beside a cairn. I ran again. Chose the right-hand path this time, the one leading down and away, toward the valley, toward people and roads and rationality. I didn't look back. I didn't stop when I heard footsteps matching my pace. I didn't stop when I felt breath on my neck. I ran until the forest opened up and I saw the parking area below, saw my car sitting exactly where I'd left it, saw 2 other vehicles and 3 people loading gear. I practically fell down the last 100 meters, stumbling into the parking area, and the people stared at me like I was crazy. Maybe I was. I tried to explain, but nothing came out right. Just fragments about cairns and singing, and my jacket in 2 places at once. One of them, an older man with a kind face, walked me to my car and made me drink water. He said people get disoriented up there all the time, that the altitude and isolation play tricks, that he'd once spent an hour convinced he was being followed by his own shadow. He was trying to help, trying to rationalize my terror, and I let him, because what else could I do? I drove back to Warsaw that night, didn't even stay in Zakopane, and I told myself he was right, that I'd panicked, that isolation and stress and pandemic anxiety had created something that wasn't there. But 3 days later, I got a package. No return address, just my name and apartment number, in handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside was my windbreaker, the one that should have been in my closet but wasn't, the one I'd worn up the mountain but hadn't brought home. The dental floss was there, the burn hole was there, and in the pocket was a small wooden figure, smooth and worn, its face carved into an expression that might have been peaceful or might have been screaming. I burned it that night, threw it in my kitchen sink and lit it with matches, watched it blacken and curl. But sometimes, when the city is quiet and I'm alone in my apartment, I hear singing. Faint and far away, a woman's voice in a language I don't know, and I wonder who else is hearing it, who else is finding cairns where they shouldn't be, who else is seeing their belongings arranged in patterns they didn't make. The police found remains up there last spring, scattered across the ridge. The news said it was a hiker who'd gone missing in 2020, but they never released a name, never confirmed identity. They mentioned that the scene was unusual, that the person's belongings had been arranged in some kind of pattern, but they attributed it to animal activity or natural displacement. I know better. I know those cairns are still there, still growing, still waiting. I know that mountain claims someone, maybe many someones, and I know I barely escaped becoming one more object in that endless spiral. Every time I see a stack of rocks, now even in a city park, even on a beach, my hands start shaking and I hear that singing, and I remember running through trees that held shapes that weren't quite human, building monuments to something I don't understand and don't want to. I haven't hiked since. I don't think I ever will again.